Good. You're watching Prophecy in the Spotlight live from just below Owensboro, Kentucky. And we are on the topic of qualifications for ministry. And the reason we're discussing this um, should be obvious to most people, but because of apostasy and false teaching in our churches. What's causing it? Most cases, apostasy is caused by the pastor, either directly or indirectly. Either he's teaching false doctrine, or he is, in fact, allowing it to be taught, and he doesn't correct it, doesn't stand up to it. And it's one or the other, most likely. But another reason for apostasy, still concerning the preacher, is that many of our men are not called of God. And so that's why we're discussing this in tonight, and we'll have at least one more session. If you were here last night, you heard us teach from Acts chapter 13. We're not going to go back there tonight. If you didn't watch that one, you should go back to last night's video, either on YouTube or Facebook. I would suggest YouTube. It's better quality, better audio, but wherever you watch, that's fine. We're also on the Spotlight Facebook page as well. And we said that there were two qualifications, and I showed that to you in Acts chapter 13. The Lord said, the Holy Ghost said, separate me, Saul, and Barnabas and Saul. Okay, that's the Apostle Paul, but his name has not yet been changed. And for the work whereunto I have called them. And the church gathered around, they prayed, they fasted, they laid hands on them. That doesn't mean they grabbed them and threw them out, by the way. That means the hands of ordination. And they agreed that God had called them. They saw that call, and they ordained and gave them authority of the church. I want to go a little further with this tonight. I want to say this. Nobody in the church in Antioch in Acts chapter 13 contacted Pastor James at the church in Jerusalem. Nobody. Nobody contacted James to see if they had if it was okay to ordain this man, these two men. Nobody checked with the community. Nobody checked with the churches in town, the other churches, and nobody. By the way, nobody formed a committee to question the candidates. You ever been to one of those? I've been to those. Um, Silly, absolutely silly. Listen, if you've got to ask a man questions, if you don't know what he believes, why in the world have you scheduled an ordination for that man? It's crazy. That's not how it works. Um, God better have already let you know that that man is called before you schedule an official ordination service for him. And you don't get a bunch of preachers and they all ask these guys questions. That's not Baptist. That's Protestants. Protestants do that, and it's not biblical at all. Okay, so you don't check with other preachers. You don't check with other churches. Holy Spirit speaks. You believe the man is called. You believe God has called him, and you lay hands on him. He's ordained. He goes out with the authority of your church to ministry. Okay. Um, you don't, no, by the way, another church doesn't get to stick its nose in 6 months later. So, you know what? I don't think that guy's qualified. Well, you know what? I don't think you're qualified to determine who's qualified in someone else's church. Did you hear what I said? I do not believe that you, other preachers, are qualified to determine who's qualified in somebody else's church. You're not there. You don't know anything about it. Or you may have some hearsay. You may have some gossip from somewhere, but you're not there. It's none of your business. Can I say that any more plain? By the way, some of you guys that are listening in right now, if somebody called your pastor or somebody went on Facebook and said, you know what, I don't think so and so, I don't think he's called of God. I don't think he should be in the ministry. You'd be furious. You'd be furious. I know you would, because some of you have done that to me. When I say some things that you don't like, you come on here and you throw a fit. And but when it happens to you, all of a sudden you're Mr. High and Mighty. You're the Pope, and how dare anybody speak against you? And but listen, we believe in the local church. We believe in the local independent Baptist. We don't answer to other churches. Your church doesn't answer to mine. My church doesn't answer to yours. The church in Philadelphia didn't answer to the church at Ephesus. The church in Antioch didn't answer to the church in Jerusalem. God ordained it that way. God didn't speak to James in Jerusalem. He spoke to the leadership of the church at Antioch and said, separate me, those two men, Saul and Barnabas, for the work where I have called them. It is God that calls. It is the church that ordains when they see that call, and when they agree that God has called the man. That's a safety net to keep wackos from getting in the ministry that are just claiming something, but you don't see it in them. You don't believe that God has called them. God hasn't told you. Okay. Spurgeon, I mentioned, said in his book, oftentimes the pastor will see the call of God in your life before you do. And that's very interesting. So um, we're independent. Another church doesn't get to decide whether someone in your church is called or not. A church outside of your church doesn't get to stick their finger in there and say that man cannot be in ministry. It's none of your business. None of your business. It's God's business, and that's another church's business. Does that bother some of you? So too bad if it bothers you. You want to be biblical, or do you want to be a pope? Do you want to be biblical? They keep your nose out of the business of other churches. Okay? It's not your business. None of your business. You're spreading gossip, you're spreading hearsay, you don't know what you're talking about, you have no way to know all the facts. Leave it to that other church unless they've asked you for some help. And so God calls, the local church lays hands on, sends them out, authorizes them. And by the way, Paul came back to the church at Antioch from time to time and shared what God was doing in the ministry. Okay, so got that? Now, next time we're going to deal with 1 Timothy chapter 3. If a man desire the office of a bishop, he desireth a good thing. And a bishop, therefore, must be, and there's a list of things there. Many of our guys are teaching that those are requirements, and that if you break one of those, you're out of the ministry. And they feel like they have the right to point you out if you live 3 states away and they hear something on the phone about you, or they Google your name, which is the stupidest thing I ever heard. I actually heard some guys saying that this thing about being blameless means that I can't believe they said it. I can't believe that they said this. They said if you Google somebody's name and a bunch of junk comes up on that man, then he's not blameless. That is the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. So Google is the judge on who can be in the ministry. Google is the judge on who is guilty and who is innocent. Google, you got to be kidding me. What Bible are you guys reading? You're not reading the King James Bible. And if you are, you're not reading. You got no wisdom. Wisdom. And a lot of you guys are young guys. I understand you young guys. I know there's some young guys that are doing podcasts and YouTube videos, and they're wet behind the ears, and they're trying to teach doctrine to the rest of us. Look, go and grow up first. My goodness, grow up. We don't need teenagers trying to teach doctrine to us, to the older men out here. And if that sounds prideful to you, I'm sorry. I'm not. This is nothing to do with pride. This is about wisdom and understanding. And these young men have not learned some things. They're repeating things that they're hearing from other places, and they're all balled up on stuff. But they have a following. That's the curse of our generation. Is YouTube, podcasting, and anybody that wants to. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to have any doctrine. You just got to have an iPhone and a camera or lights and a little room to do it in, and you get a following. And God help us. God help us. Deliver us from this. And so, listen, God ordained the church. He founded it. Founded it. He's the chief cornerstone. He founded it upon the apostles in the apostolic age, and now and he there's one church, but that one church is made up of thousands of local bodies with their own pastors, their own congregations. It is none of your business what's going on in somebody else's church. You know, Proverbs 6 says, these six things does the Lord hate, yea, seven are an abomination to me. You know what one of them is? By the way, divorce is not on the list of those seven things. You know what is on the list there? Somebody, somebody spreading false accusations and discord among the brethren. Do you know that's going on all over America, all over our churches? Oh, they don't think they're spreading false information. Well, after all, I heard it from this preacher up here up north. This preacher I talked to, he told me what was going on. And that's not gossip. How is that not gossip? What is gossip? Gossip is when somebody else is spreading something about you. That's gossip. But when you're spreading something you heard on the phone, but you didn't check it out, that's not gossip, right? God deliver us. What a curse upon us. And by the way, it's a lot of you younger men are involved in this. A lot of you younger men are hearing things, you're spreading things. You've got zeal without knowledge. I'm sorry. You've got zeal without knowledge. It's why the Bible says not to be a novice, not to be green behind the ears, new at this. We need some seasoned men leading these younger men. And I could start naming some of these younger men, but that's not what my ministry's about here. I'm not trying to hurt him. I'm trying to spread truth and help people, help our churches get up out of this mire and this mud and this slinging of mud and attacking everybody's churches, attacking preachers. After all, after it's over, there's two or three guys that wind up above everybody because everyone else is bad except you three or four guys. Ain't that the stupidest thing you ever heard? Stupidest thing you ever heard. When you tear somebody down, you know what you're really doing? You're picking yourself up above them, and you think you're better than them. Some guy falls into sin. You think you're better than him, don't you? He can't be in the ministry. Plus God. Well, what right do you have to be in the ministry, Mister? What right do you have? He can't be restored. Oh, is that right? And who taught you that lie? That restoration is only about restoring back to fellowship with God. Who taught you that? You didn't read that in the Bible. Somebody told you that. And I know where some of you are getting it because I heard him say it. And then you guys repeat it. You're like an echo chamber. Anything this guy says, you guys like you fall down and you worship him. That's that's what I'm saying. We've got young men out here that don't know the difference in worshiping a man and following a man and following the scriptures and finding out for yourself what does the Bible say. So apostasy and discord among the brethren. Why? Because number one, we got some preachers in our pulpits and in our ministries who are not called of God, not called of God. And we've got preachers and young men who have gotten a mouthpiece and have gotten a following, and it's gone to the head. Pride has crept in, and they're lording over all the churches now. You show me where your calling for that is in the Bible. You show me. Show me where your calling for that is. Now, if you started 3 or 4 churches, like Paul did, that's what he meant. He had the care of all the churches. He would go back and make his rounds and try to correct things in those churches as an evangelist. And but most of you're just gossips and critics and spreaders of discord. That's right. Look, if the shoe fits, do something about it. Get right with God. Get on your face tonight. Ask God to forgive you. Say, look, Brother Goins right. I've been critical. I've been tearing down other churches and preachers. I don't really have any facts. I just heard this stuff through the grapevine. Yeah, you know who owns the grapevine? The devil. That's right. Tail bearers. Tail bearer. You're a tail bearer. You didn't eyewitness anything. You didn't see anything. You heard it on the telephone. Or you heard it on Facebook, because everything's on Facebook's true, right? Got to be true. God deliver us. That's why apostasy in these last days. Young men spreading stuff, some older men as well, but younger men tearing down, attacking men that were from the prior generation that they didn't never even met, have no proof of anything. They just heard some things. And boy, a lie travels a lot faster than the truth, doesn't it? Don't be guilty of that. Don't be guilty. Hey, if you're a pastor, you pastor your church. You mind your business. Brother Goodwin, who do you think you are? Tell me as a pastor what to do, because I'm an evangelist. I know my calling. I know what God's called me to do. Do you know what God's called you to do, Pastor? I'll tell you what God's called you to do. God has called you to an area and a people. That's where you need to busy yourself. And forget about the church across town, the church in another state. Stay off the stinking phone and build a work for God. God called you to a place and a people. Pour your life into that place and keep out of the business of somebody else's orchard. You don't like that? I don't care. Tell God about it. Get right with God. We need some men of God out there. And by the way, there's some good pastors. There's plenty of good pastors. But there's a lot of duds out there. A lot of guys in the ministry that shouldn't be in the ministry. A lot of guys out there blabbing that ain't called of God to do anything. And okay, some of them's been to Bible college. Not everybody that comes out of Bible college has got a calling of God on his life. Oh, boy, did Brother Good just say that? I did. Okay. Just because you went to Bible college don't mean you're a minister of the gospel and that you're to be ordained. Now, I know a lot of colleges, all the graduates, they ordain them all. I don't understand that. I don't understand. That's not biblical. And you guys that are doing that, you're doing a great disservice to the ministry and to our churches. You're filling our pulpits and our churches with men who have been ordained but have not been called. And these men are going to cause a lot of problems because they don't have that touch of God, and they're meddling in an area that they've not been called to. They're ministering in an area. I'm not talking about going soul in and things like everybody's called to that. I'm talking about the ministry. I'm talking about pastors, evangelists, and you get men in the ministry that aren't called to that, and we've got problems. We got a lot of mama called guys. We got a lot of daddy called guys. But I'll tell you what, we got the most of preacher called men. somebody that's your son, we automatically think my son's gonna take my place when I retire here. Well, I'm not. That may be God's will, but you know what? More than likely, it's not. And by the way, very seldom. I've been watching this for 40 years. I've seen dozens of these illustrations where a guy gets his son into the pulpit and it's a disaster. The son is almost never got the character of the dad, and very seldom does it work. And I don't understand. We think we're patriarch in the patriarch age or something, and like the kings of Israel, my son takes the throne when I die. That's not how the church works in this generation. It's not how it works. And by the way, the son, if he's going to take your church, it's got to be called and got to be approved by the church. And you don't just appoint him. You say, "Well, I'm dying, or I'm leaving. My son's gonna take my spot." That's not biblical. Okay. So anyway, I hope some of this is being help to you. I know some of this is a little rough. But you know what? The ministry is a little rough sometimes, and sometimes you just gotta say things and be blunt. Sometimes it can sound hurtful. It's not meant to be. Preaching isn't to hurt people, it's to help people, and it's to help churches. And I'm an old-fashioned Bible-believing evangelist, and I know what God has called me to do. Now, my friend, are you called? Are you called to the ministry? Has your church seen that calling in you, or have you had hands laid on them? Are you ordained to the ministry? Can you take me to a place back in time where you know that God called you to something? If you cannot, I question your calling. But I've been ordained. There's a lot of preachers that ordain guys that shouldn't be ordained. And I'm talking to you, not your pastor. Can you go back? Can you show me a place where you know God dealt with me in that chair right there? God dealt with me in that pew right there. God dealt with me out in the woods, June 15th or somewhere back in 1992. I was out in the woods and praying, and God dealt with me, and I believe He called me. Can you point to that? See, we got a whole generation of young men today. I don't think, number one, I don't think they understand what the call of God is. Now, there's some good, no, I'm not saying all of them, but we've got some men in the ministry that I don't think can point to a place where they know that God spoke to them and called them to ministry. And yet they're in the ministry. They may even had hands laid on them. But they don't have that fire that God gave in a calling. Moses was called of God up in the mountain. Pretty obvious there, right? Jeremiah chapter 1, read that. God called Jeremiah. Elijah threw his mantle on him. Elisha knew he was called. He was so sure of it, he burned the plow so he couldn't come back to the farm. He burned it. Said, I ain't coming back. God has called me. Barnabas and Saul, no doubt about that. Called of God, hands laid on, sent out to the work. How about you? How about these guys that you're following that are trashing other preachers? Are you happy about that? You think that's the will of God? But Brother Goon, you don't understand. Some of these preachers are guilty. Of course they are. Some of them are, of course. You don't know. You don't have the facts on it. That guy that you're following doesn't have the facts. You're not in that guy's church. He's not in your circle. And the guy that's attacking him and sharing it with you on his podcast or YouTube channel, he doesn't have any firsthand knowledge. He's not a part of that church. What business is of his? None. None. It's nothing he can deal with. He's not there. He couldn't walk in a courtroom and present evidence. He has no evidence. He's got something he heard on the phone. Oh, but you don't understand. It's from so and so. That don't mean it's true. Where did he get it? I'm telling you, this stuff spreads round and round and round, and after 6 months, it's so distorted. Nobody knows what the truth is. Why don't you stay out of it? Why don't you do the will of God that God has called you to do? And I promise you, God hasn't called you to be the policeman of our churches. God hasn't called that guy that you're following to be the policeman of our churches. Sure, brother Goodwin, we got stuff going on in our church. Of course we do. Churches are full of people. People are sinners, saved sinners and lost sinners. Stuff happens in everybody's church. But it ain't your job to go and accuse people and mess with it. It's somebody else's job that's there. It's not your job. By the way, you didn't call that man to preach. God did. Stay out of that business. That's God's business. Next time, probably tomorrow night, I'll explain to you what this must be stuff is in 1 Timothy 3. And I'm going to give you a couple of illustrations and to help you understand what it means. One of them is he must be blameless. Now, these guys say blameless means if you Google somebody's name and some bad stuff comes up, he's not blameless. That's a lie. Can I go on record? That's a lie. Now, it may be that some of that stuff's true, and maybe he should be out of the ministry. But that's not how you determine whether a man's guilty. Not by looking on Google, Googling someone's name, and oh, look what came up. That doesn't mean that he's guilty of that crime just because Google says it. Where does Google get that stuff? It searches the World Wide Web and it finds little tidbits here and there. What makes you think that what somebody said about that preacher is the truth? It gets recorded on the websites and Google finds it and brings it in. That doesn't mean it's true. Do we want the truth or not? No, no, it's a lot more fun and it's a lot more exciting to tear somebody down and to believe a lie about somebody. Well, he committed adultery. You don't know that. You don't has he admitted it? So this is destroying our churches. This is bringing in the great end time apostasy. And I may can't change these young guys out there. They don't care what I say, most likely. Some of them have attacked me for defending some men of God that they know nothing about, and I do. And they've never asked me what I saw, what I know. They don't care. They heard stuff on the phone. The guys they're guilty. And some of us old guys know better. Some of us were there, and we know what was going on and what was not going on. They haven't asked me. They don't want my opinion. They don't want my eyewitness point of view. They want to believe the trash that's on the internet that some wicked people are spreading and they bought into it. It's so sad. But you don't have to be like this. You that are listening today, you can break the chain, get out of it. I told a pastor, oh, a week or so ago. I told him, and we had a great conversation. It talks about an hour and a half. I feel like I feel like he's a friend. I said, "Look, you don't know me. I have no right to give you advice, but if I could give you advice, I'd say this one thing. I'd say, stay in your lane." Now, some of you guys know what that means because I've shared that here. Stay in your lane means stay within the lines of your business. Don't get in someone else's business. Don't get in somebody else's lane. Stay in your lane. And I said, Pastor, you'll destroy your church, you'll destroy your testimony if you attack other preachers, even if they're guilty. Stay out of it. God can take care of it. God calls the man, God can deal with it if the man's guilty. Okay. Now I think I helped him. But I don't know. We haven't talked since. Maybe he hung up and he maybe blew it off. I don't know. I feel like I helped him. I hope I did. I was sincere. And I would say that to any pastor. You ought to be so busy inside the circle of your work that God's given you that you ain't got time to find out what some other pastor's doing. Music. I don't like the contemporary music. I detest it. I've been in churches that I've preached at where, honest to goodness, I had to sit in the back. The music was so loud, and I had to drown it out. I had to prepare. I'm getting up to preaching a little bit, and the music was just distasteful to me. Do you know what? It really is not my business. If I'm a pastor of another church, it is not my business if somebody's using the music I don't like. I'm not going to use it if I'm a pastor, and I'm going to teach my people what's wrong with that music. But am I going to attack other preachers? Why would I do that? Number one, that pastor's not gonna listen to me. In fact, it's gonna do is build a wall, and I'll never be able to help that guy. Now, if I can talk to him personally, I'll try to help him if I can. But most pastors are not teachable. I hate to say it. I've been an evangelist for quite a few years now. There's very few pastors that will let me help them. And now there are some. There's some that, man, they want me to help. But most pastors, uh, they kind of think they're above you a little bit, and you're not there to help them. And oh well. So all right, we got to get off here. I've been too long, and tomorrow night I'm going to share something pretty amazing with you about First Timothy 3. You may not believe it when I say it. You may not. You may say I'm wrong. That's your business. I'm going to tell you what I believe God has given me in a way to explain what's meant by that passage. Must be blameless, husband of one wife, and the whole list of things there. And I asked the preacher. I said, I was on the phone. I said, brother, are you blameless? He didn't even hesitate. Didn't even stop and think. Yes. You know why? You know why? Because he has to be blameless because he believes if he doesn't fit all those conditions, then he's out of the ministry. And I'm telling you, there's nobody blameless 100% of the time. What is that talking about? What is the passage talking about? One of them is about losing your temper. Hey, preachers, have you never lost your temper? Sure you have. Shouldn't you resign from the ministry? No, all you pick out is that one that you don't like in the list and that you're not guilty of. And so anyone that's messed up in that area, they got to get out of the ministry. But you lose your temper sometimes, but but that's different. Really. And I'll help you with this if you let me. Now, if you're sitting there saying, "Oh, you're an idiot, Brother Goodman," you ought to quit watching. You ought to go watch somebody else's channel. If you detest me, some of you do, go somewhere else. I can't help you, and I'm not here to help you. Evidently, we got Minnesota here. We got Ladybug listening, and we got a lot of old. Let's see. There's a lot of old Baptist pastors that aren't that great on doctrine either, and that's sad. Um, yeah, but if a guy's a little weak in some areas of some doctrine, but he's doing the work of God, he loves his people, and he's not attacking everybody around him, I'd rather have him, to be honest with you. The King James Bible is the perfect word of God. Amen to that. I'm 1,000% with you. A lot of pastors would rather preach their pet peeves and preferences rather than preaching and teaching Bible doctrine. And okay, thank you for that. All righty. What do we got down here? Anything? Let's see. I don't think, all right, no comments there. This is Wednesday night too. There's probably some people in church tonight, and depending on what time zone you're in. So, um, okay, we'll get off here, and Lord willing, tomorrow night I'll have something pretty exciting for you. But don't forget, we'll be coming very soon with some tremendous information and update on the rapture. I'm going to produce a PowerPoint. I'm going to need that PowerPoint to explain this scenario to you to help you understand it. Many of you, if I don't have the PowerPoint and can't show it to you on a slide, you're just not going to get it. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and some of you are weak on those pieces of the puzzle, and it'll help if I can show it to you on a slide. Okay, so I'm going to work on that. I've only told a few men my scenario here, and we'll be coming pretty soon. By the way, we're going to start a new series. Um, I asked some of you to tell me what you'd like me to teach next time. And one of the things that was mentioned was salvation in the tribulation period. And I will probably take that up next. I think it was Brother Forrest or Forrester, our poet, the gospel poet. I think he's the one that mentioned that, but I think anyway. And so that's probably what we're going to take up after we get done this series. And next week might be the end of this series. And thanks for listening. God bless. Keep your eyes on them skies.